You were meant to be abundant, happy, and in love with yourself. And if you're not feeling or experiencing any of those things, it just means that you haven't found yourself yet, or you're not living as your authentic self. You don't want to live as your authentic self. You don't want to discover it, or it might have frightened you to take that jump, because that would be the only reason that you don't have all of those things. And I know because I didn't do that. I'm 73 and I'm just uncovering that now. And I'm thinking, wow, I'm just now becoming willing to embody my authentic self. See, our individual journeys are going to be quite different, no matter who we are, when we live. It's everyone has a path within them, and so I just recently put out something that said your divine plan. You have a divine plan, because that's all the information that I had received, and that discovery was actually more challenging for me, because see, I could see any person and know that they have this divine plan that they're meant to live, and if they could only embrace that and live it, wow, would they have this really terrific life. But then I have to tell them that you just have to move through all the restrictions that have been in the way, and those have only been in your consciousness, because as humans, that's all we have is our consciousness. But then we come to understand that it's been shaped by all of those around us, our families, our friends, our ancestors, wherever we came from, our countries. And then we have to try to figure out, well, who am I? And that's the question that we keep asking. Who am I? Then you discover that you're this unique soul that came to the planet to accomplish something. Everything, it's in there. You have it all. But then we have different roles. And obviously my role was to become a mystic, a sage, and a prophet, and bring in a new philosophy to help shape the world, the new world, because that's what we're doing. When we look at things today, what's happening in your life or what's happening in the world, it's all energy. It's all the energy that we choose to use individually and then collectively. And then we've come to understand through the sciences over the years and study that we have direct use of that energy because it's in our thinking. When we come into physical form, we don't have anything else but that. All we have is our thinking, our thoughts. And then we start to learn that they are manifesting things. But most times we're not paying attention to how we're holding those thoughts. I didn't for the longest time. And then I discovered that that was the reason that I was having all the difficulty. I discovered that was the reason that I was sick all the time, and then I had all these physical ailments that were happening because I wasn't willing to embrace myself. But the reason I wasn't willing to embrace myself because I was doing something completely different than most people around me. So are you. And that's what we're meant to do. But then the world says, wait a minute, no, you can't be different. You can't become happy. You can't be abundant. No, you've been taught something else. You can't do that. And then we'll look at our world and we'll see hundreds of thousands of people who are believing the same thing. And then we end up with a world that looks a little chaotic because we haven't been able to own who we are. That's all. You come to understand at a certain point that it's all in your consciousness, and that when you can grab hold of it, you can create anything. I've proven that, so I do know that that is true. But I went through every difficulty as well. I went through every hardship. I went through every fear, every doubt, because I know that's what you're feeling. We all do. I was just meant to bring in something to help us all move through that. And it felt so out of character for me to discover that, wait a minute, I had something that would make a difference in the world. And I know that that's true. You see, because when more people understand who they are and they can move through their generational trauma or things that were taught to them that told them they weren't enough, then we start to see that flourishing in our future generations. The world starts to change. I had to move over all of the things that had been implanted within me that told me I wasn't enough, just because of the color of my skin, just because of this is what my ancestry was. But then I did something else. See, Wilhelm gave me something else, gave me a way to look through all of that and then to heal. And I can tell you that it works because all those physical things are now gone. But where I started, I'll tell you this. I didn't know why I was doing it, but I just followed this guidance. I followed this intuition. We all have it. We may not always listen because sometimes it's frightening. It was frightening for me for the longest time. But I was guided in 2016 to write an article saying that I might be racist with misogynistic tendencies. And everyone thought, why are you talking about this? Because you begin to understand as a human that we all carry limited old beliefs. They're within us. We've had different places that we've lived, let's say. So those thoughts and beliefs are within us. And unless we decide to look at them and uncover them and release them from our existence, we can't take them out of the world. So that was the first thing that I had to do. And it was uncomfortable to write that article because I knew I was going to be judged. But I really wasn't, which was also surprising, because I think what happened is that people read the article and they recognized themselves. They thought, oh, I've done the same thing. That's where we start understanding that all humans operate the same way. It's in our consciousness. We may look different in terms of our race, our age, our gender, our wherever we grew up, our countries, whatever, but underneath it all, every human is exactly the same. And when you think about that, then you have to ask yourself, why haven't you reached that place where some of those other humans are doing all these incredible things? It's because you were taught something else, you haven't broken through it yet, and then you didn't have available to you a way to do that, which is why I had to create it. And I did that, so I know I've done it. Now, the only thing I haven't done, as I've talked about, is that I haven't given all of it. But I'll tell you what happened as a result of this, and you'll understand it, because there is a connection in our universe. We may not always understand it because it's energetic. Our world is made up of science. The sciences we can kind of figure out, but everything is energy. We've all been taught that. And then we can all think that time is an illusion as well. Now, that's not a concept everyone will accept, but when you read the message that I put up yesterday, you will see that that is true, because I was given messages on certain days over decades, over the years, and then you read them and you see that your consciousness changes because you understand more. We can think about that when we went to school and we knew we went to a certain grade, and then we do the next grade, and then we learn more because we are capable now. That's the same thing that happens within us individually, but also within our world. But the world takes a little bit longer, because some people are going to hold on to old ideas and old beliefs because their egos will be in the way. When you understand that the ego is the thing that has given us all difficulty, that's what it does. The ego is this, and this is from my Wilhelm, I'll just give you this, is that the ego is this entity that we have each created that exists outside of us. At times it thinks it's going to keep us safe, because then we don't move. That's when our ego says, stay small, don't let anyone see who you are, and because if you do, something terrible is going to happen. But then we can use it the other way as well, and you'll see that in the world, because it's happening right now. Because if I can make my ego really big, and if I can project to others that I'm this really powerful person, then I'm covering up that insecurity that I truly feel underneath. But then when you take these other steps, you see, and you start understanding and accepting yourself, something else happens. You become aligned with the energies of the universe, and then you start to see yourself heal. Now, see, this is the thing I'm going to start talking about a lot more, because I just put up something yesterday, and there's a video in there, and you can hear it. It's from 3 years ago, where I was told that I needed to write this book. I needed to do this next thing because I had all of this information, but it took a while for me to accept that. Same thing for you. We always have something that's out in front of us in our consciousness, and many times we don't grab it because it's unknown, and we fear that unknown. Not necessarily because it's going to be dangerous, but mainly because it causes us to look at ourselves in a new way, and then we have to reveal that to others. That was my problem. This introverted self revealing what I had been doing for more than 35 years, that was difficult. And then to have others believe it. But see, what my guide, Wilhelm, did, they said, we're going to prove it to you. They gave me a message on February 19th. And the reason that came through was because that was the first day that I actually wrote down a message that I was receiving. It was February 19th of 1989. And then if you look at that date online, you can search it and just see what happened. And you'll see there are many different events that happened throughout history, going back hundreds of years, I mean even more, thousands of years, you'll see. And all of these things happen on that date. Why? Because there was an energetic alignment that happened, and certain people said, okay, I'm going to bring something new into the world, and obviously that's what I did. And then if you read all of those messages, because that particular message, which is on my site, anyadvicefortoday.com, but I'll leave links here, and it says, accepting this message will change your life and world. Because we all do that, you see. Every human is equal in terms of what we can contribute and put into the world. But if we decide to own ourselves and love who we are, we're putting a much greater energy into the world, then we have a much better life as well. Now, I wish I had had all this work before. That's my only regret. I can say that. I mentioned that when I did this show Beyond Belief. That was one of the places that I began telling the full story because I wanted people to understand. Because I know the changes that we're moving through in our world, and the more of us who understand why they are occurring, we will have great lives, and then we also contribute to creating a much better world because we're in a little bit of chaos. But that chaos was purposeful because it causes us to move. It causes us to seek something else. It causes us to move to a higher state of existence, which is within each of us. But you must understand everyone's not going to do that. And so it becomes up to you to decide, am I going to choose to be happy? Am I going to choose to be in love with myself? Am I going to choose to move through all the old generational trauma that no longer serves me? Those are the only questions that we have. But we have different roles. Mine took a long time. I remember a friend of mine who did my astrology report. He's been my friend for more than 50 years now. But he did an astrology reading for me many, many years ago. And he said, "You're a late bloomer." And he was absolutely correct, but I hated hearing it at the time. Because we want things right away. We want things to manifest because we don't have the time and the patience to understand our individual unique journey. But see, I was given that path now. I was given a plan to help anyone who chooses to do this become their best self. And it's been shown. Now, I will tell you the rest of that story because, see, in 2021, when that was revealed to me, you can hear it in the video because it came out in the channeling session that I just shared yesterday, and it's on my YouTube channel, or it's in that message that was posted yesterday. You can listen to it because it was from 2021. And all of it was said there as well. But you will understand it more today because that's how we evolve. We take in information, we have to integrate it into our consciousness, into our being, accept it, and then we start to move in a different way. And you also hear in there where I was a little afraid because I discovered that I could read anyone's difficulty. I just did a private channeling session, and the guy was a little surprised because this happens. I don't know when it happens, but today it was different. Because I always ask for your birthday before I do a session because I know I was given a message on your birthday in 2012. And so if I can read that message, then I can see exactly what might be happening for you at this time in your life. But then today, this morning, when I read his birthday, my guides, Wilhelm, said, no, we want you to look at more years. And they had me write down titles of different years, all corresponding with his birthday, though, but they just happened in different years. And then I just sat there and told him those things before we started the session, and he was kind of shocked. So was I, because I don't always know why I'm receiving that information, but I've come to trust it now and know that it's always correct, because I want more people to trust their intuition. That's what you have. Now, it takes a while, which is why I'm going to be adding more of that into my course, because I hid that part of my life away for the longest time, but that's the thing that caused me to heal. And it was something that was a little unbelievable to me because I couldn't explain to people why or how I was healing things physically that doctors said were impossible. We are never limited. This is why when I did a channeling session, Wilhelm kept bringing out the idea of Roger Bannister. And I go, people don't know who that is. He was a runner who ran the first sub 4-minute mile back in the 50s because no one thought it was possible. And I healed cluster headaches, and people said that's not possible. Doctors still say that's not possible. But I know anything is possible when you decide to embrace who you are, when you decide to move through the blockages that have been creating pain in your life, and that's what it does. So I was also reminded of a dream, and you'll hear this in that recording. I'll leave all these links in this video, but you can also find them on my site, anyadvicefortoday.com. But you'll hear in there where I was reminded, and you might be feeling this as well, because sometimes we have dreams. We can't tell sometimes if they're real or if they're really happening or if we're supposed to follow them. But I don't have a lot of them. I didn't have a lot that I remember. But in 2005, I did. And it was very clear of what I was meant to do. But it didn't seem like I could accept that. And so I wrote the dream down, put it in a folder, and shoved it in a closet. That's what many of us do as well. We will have this vision of what we want to be, who we want to become. But then because it hasn't, we can't see it, it's not tangible, we think it's not us, and then we start operating on the imposter syndrome because that's easier. If I can call myself an imposter, then I don't have to live up to this imaginary idea that I think I'm supposed to live, because everyone has that. And it's so beautiful when you start to understand that as well, because then you're not as afraid. See, I had to write the book on fear, but that was in 2019, Overcoming Fear, A Guide to Freedom, because it stopped me in my entire life, and I knew that it was a problem. And then you discovered that it's a problem with most people. If you were to do a search on what holds most people back, you will see that fear is right up there. It's just the top one. But then the other part of it is being willing to be seen, being vulnerable. This is why Dr. Brene Brown, when she first did her book and her whole presentation, her TED Talk about being vulnerable, and everyone flocked to it because we all knew we couldn't do it. We weren't doing it, and she still wasn't doing it. And she talked about that. You know, I love that story where she said when she first wrote the book and she got all this fame, she had to go and get therapy because she had to catch up to herself. You're always doing that as well. We all are. We have to acknowledge we're in physical bodies for a while, and we have to decide if we're going to start now becoming our authentic self so we can have the abundance, so we can have the happiness, and so that we can become in love with ourselves, because that's the most powerful thing anyone can do. And that's the work that I have been given, and now I can give it to the world. I'll put a few links in this video because I want you to read February 19th. That'll make sense. There's several videos there as well throughout, and if you haven't subscribed to there, you might want to do that because I'm going to continue to put this information in. Then also, I'm going to be going back to Gaia, and many people have seen that. I did that show Beyond Belief with George Noory, and if you haven't, please watch that. That's when I told most of the story. But now, what's happening is I'm going back in October and I'm doing something much larger. And it's going to be a channeling conference, and I'd love for all of you to see it. You can watch it for free. I'll leave that information as well. There's 5 channelers that we will be there bringing in information about what's happening in the world and what we see as the future. But what I know is that we are creating the future, and we do that when we decide to own and love ourselves and follow our unique path and our unique journey, and that's when we have everything we want in our lives, and that's when we will create the world we want to see as well. Sometimes it may take you a while, but there is no reason for you not to have all of those things. And I'm saying this because I know for sure every single person has that within them. All right, thanks for being here, you guys. And if it's your first time, please subscribe, share it with others. Let's uplift our planet, and we're going to do that through you, because you are that powerful. And when you love yourself and start doing what you came to do, we will see the world change. See you soon.